Public meeting to order. For attendance, we have all our trustees present, including our student trustees, and Trustee Sipkar is with us on the phone, and she will be for the entire evening. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Trustee Leclerc, Trustee Nelson, all those in support? That's carried. Thank you very much. And I need a motion to convene to private session. Trustee Buckler, Trustee McKinley, all those in support? That's carried. So we will recess now to private session and we will reconvene the public meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you. I'm going to reconvene our public meeting. And we have all trustees present and Trustee Sipkar is with us on the phone. Okay. First, I would like to invite Trustee Leclerc to give us the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We acknowledge that we are on the land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous people who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and the Allied Nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederation, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa and Potawatomi, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you very much. I now call on the director to present the special order of the day, and I would ask everybody to please rise.
It is with profound sadness that we mourn the loss of a beloved friend and colleague, Michelle Musso, at the age of 48. As an employee of the Greater Essex County District School Board for nearly 25 years, Michelle spent most of her time as a child and youth worker at W.F. Herman Academy Secondary School. Everything Michelle did was with compassion and commitment. Her sense of honor could lighten even the most difficult situations. She received the board's Outstanding Service Award in 2010. Michelle worked diligently to ensure students' needs were met so they could learn to their highest potential. She was the driving force behind the school's first nutrition program and the annual holiday gift basket campaign. She collected and distributed clothing and personal hygiene items and helped students procure prom dresses and attire for school events. In her personal life, she was a strong supporter of the CIBC Run for the Cure, the Canadian Cancer Society, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Michelle was a beautiful person in every sense. Her impact was great, and her presence will be deeply missed by those of us who had the good fortune to have known her. She leaves behind her husband, a true best friend, Matthew Musso, and her children, Caleb and Isabel. It's never easy to share a tribute for a staff member that we've lost, and I've had the pleasure during my career with Greater Essex to interact with Michelle on many, many occasions, and to refer to her as a gem is absolutely an understatement. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Houston, and on behalf of the trustees, our sincere sympathy to the Musso family. Moving on, do we have a declaration, any declarations of conflict of interest for this meeting? Seeing none. Actions of the board meeting in private session.
No actions of private session.
There was one item under the chair's report. One motion. What's the number?
Item under the chair's report, G3,
Yes. Yes.
moved by trustee Leclerc, seconded by trustee Buckler. All in support? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion for approval of the minutes, G1 and G2. Trustee Buckler, trustee Leclerc. All those in support? Any opposed? No. Carried, thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. The student trustee presentations. Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you. Good evening, trustees, Director Houston, senior administration, and members of the public. Happy April. It's been a very busy month in the GCDSB with a lot of good things taking place. Schools are planning for spring fundraisers, collections, assemblies, and pep rallies to celebrate school spirit. Earth Week is approaching quickly, with schools discussing how students and staff can reduce their footprint both at school and at home. Specialist high skills major students are completing their certifications in their chosen specialty. Bell River's robotics team, the Boltheads, is headed to Texas to compete this week. And despite not having a usable track right now, the Nobles track and field team is resilient, holding practice at least twice a week. The Essex District High School girls hockey team recently competed at OFSA, and which they placed top 15 out of 800. Right now, the Kingsville District High School is planning its closing ceremonies and send-off socials. The Cavs Legacy Fundraiser Committee has been very active on social media, getting community partners, and Parent Council with them is planning this social event. It's scheduled for the end of May for all community and alumni to enjoy. It will include live entertainment, school tours, alumni sports games, decade rooms, and food vendors. So it's a must-attend event that will give KDHS a proper send-off. At our Student Senate meeting last Tuesday, we were honored to have Energy and Environmental Officer Rachel Bondi and teacher consultants Dana Simonovic and Craig Weglars in attendance to give us an update on the board's waste management goals. And we learn more and more each time they present, and we really appreciate all the work they put into inspiring us students as well as staff to do their part to reduce the board footprint. Student Senate reviewed the naming and renaming of board facilities regulation in light of the recent naming of the new K-12 school in Kingsville. We are very disappointed with the lack of student engagement written into the process. Having 2 student representatives on the naming committee is not sufficient opportunity for student voices. As students of the GCDSB, we expect to have meaningful opportunities to share our opinions when our schools are named and renamed. As a result of our discussion, Student Senate is presenting a letter to the Board of Trustees with suggestions to engage students in the process to give us a chance to listen to the naming committee and for student voice to be heard. It is Student Senate's hope that trustees will respect student voice and incorporate our suggestions into future revisions of the school naming and renaming of board facilities regulation R-PL-01. Just to give a bit of background for you guys, as you weren't at our Student Senate meeting, it was moved by an Essex student senator that they wanted to discuss what went on and kind of their opinions on that. I know, just to clarify some questions that were asked previously, the students of Essex very do believe that the name does not sit well with the community, so they put that forward. It was also seconded by a Windsor school senator, kind of putting it that all students stand together in this and are united, not just one community. I would like to recognize KDHS students Emerson Jadisky, Kinsey Kendrick, and Alexis Tyndall for demonstrating exemplary leadership at the March 19th board meeting. In their truly eloquent speeches, the students stood up and spoke out against the new name of the K-12 school in Kingsville. SARM and I are incredibly proud of these brave students who publicly addressed an issue that is important to them. It's hard to stand up in front of people and give your opinion, but these students were models of grace under pressure. It takes courage, perseverance, and resilience to stand up and do what is right, even when people in the room are opposed to your opinion. Emerson, Kinsey, and Alexis are outstanding examples of great student leadership and advocating for student voice. I'd like to touch on some of the advocacy work myself and SARM have had the privilege to participate in. I led the strategic planning team that addressed student trustees' concerns with Ontario public education. The team heard student trustees' feedbacks and suggestions at our Education Action Conference, and we will use this to inform OSTA's, ACO's advocacy goals for the future. The Public Education Cabinet is planning an upcoming professional development summit for public student trustees to lead through the teamwork. SARM and I take pride in our roles as student trustees and are responsible to advocate for best interests of students in the board. It takes a lot for a person to admit their mistakes and work to fix them. This is why I attempted to do so after being misled into voting in favor of a motion that did not do right by the students who elected me to be their voice in the boardroom. For that, I sincerely apologize to the students of the GEC-DSB, and I promise to always be willing to admit my mistakes and attempt to make them right. So I will now, on behalf of Student Senate, read the letter that has been distributed to all of you as Board of Trustees.
Sorry, no, and we don't have it.
It's in
So-
your inbox. It's been
So-
emailed and distributed.
Okay. But if it's been emailed, then there's no need to read it. Thank you.
Point of order. I think he has right to read because we didn't have time to read at all. He
Yeah,
just
we
sent
can-
to us. And it's important for us to
Yeah, we can
vote for
read
the
it.
motion.
We can read it.
Yeah.
There's no problem with the time to read it. Is your report finished?
No, it is not.
Okay.
I will just
Continue.
touch then on the key interests, not read the entire letter for you.
Okay.
So our main goals in that we sent out, we had 5 pillars that we really thought could be added to the process as it goes back to the policy committee.
Point of order.
I-
Point of order. I've
So
read
you
the
vote-
letter. Your 5 pillars are the letter. I'm quite happy to have received the letter, and you can distribute it as you feel fit, but it's not required
Yeah,
to be
it-
read here.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's-
Point of
it's-
order. I didn't have time to read it because I just got
Sorry,
it.
Trustee
Yeah.
Chin, you don't have to read it for this portion of the meeting. But Student Trustee Pine, whatever it is that your student parliament wants to submit about the naming, renaming policy should be submitted to the policy committee, not here tonight at the board. The policy is under review. The policy committee has already set up a procedure for that, and that's where it should be directed.
So I would just offer a correction that it's Student Senate, which represents
Sorry. I
the
don't
students
know.
as a whole, not just a student
Sorry.
parliament at one school.
Sorry.
And as their elected employee, I represent Student Senate. This is what they have given me. I'm their voice at the board table.
That's fine.
Was just going to read the key
No,
bold
so-
pillars as I'm giving you a
So
report.
you're not an employee. Let me correct you on that. You're not an employee. No trustee is an employee. And again, the policy committee, by board motion, is reviewing, and the student senate is welcome to submit. And that's how you should be handling that. Trustee Burgess?
Only if the report's finished. I have a question for clarification. Thanks for the report, and I understand that, there's a big invitation for all students, present students and past alumni, to attend a KDHS, we call them closing ceremonies, but, it's a celebration of the facility. But I didn't hear anything with regard to Jack Miner Public School and Kingsville Public School, because they also have an invitation out to all students rather, present and past, and they're also got some pretty ambitious things. So my question for clarification is, do you have any details on those?
Okay, do you have details on that?
Yeah, through
Okay.
you, Madam Chair. So they have let us know that they are having their closing ceremonies. So far, it's just been Kingsville who has given me their set details to include in the report. So I didn't want to include anything until I had the concreted dates from those elementary schools. But I'm sure that they will be out there, and as I receive them, I'll be sure to distribute it so all of you can attend if you're able to.
Thank you. And we have Student of the Month. Oh, do we have a question on the report? Trustee Chin? No, there's no point of privilege. Do you have a question on the report?
Yes, I am really interested in your letter that because I know it's important to
Trustee
hear
Chin,
from the student
That
senate.
letter is going to the policy committee. You are a member. You will have the letter and you will discuss it at the policy.
I think it's time emergency, and
No.
we don't have time to wait for the policy to discuss
There's
it.
no emergency, Trustee Chin. Please, you're being disruptive now. There's no emergency.
Because we have a motion today to vote, and we have to have all the information.
We're not at notice of the motion yet. Thank you. Student Trustee Pine?
Sorry, just for clarification, was that a question on the deliberations that went into the letter or just the letter in its entirety?
Regardless, it goes to the policy committee. It's not for discussion here tonight. And, it's just very important that we follow our rules of procedure. Thank you. Do we have a trustee of the month?
Yes, we do.
Sorry, a student of the month.
Yes, we do.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair. The student of the month for April is Leamington District Secondary School's grade 12 student, Joel Stockwell. He's a remarkable role model for the theme of initiative. Joel excels due to his ability to act. He's resourceful and conscientious, as hard as that word may be, in his academics, extracurriculars, and in his community. He joined computer programming and math, and it's been his passion from a young age. He once built a remote control wheelchair in high school, and he started a coding club for ESL students who did not have access to computers at home. He recently completed a passion project making a console Uno game with 1,500 lines of code. Joel enjoys writing a variety of math contests, and his dedication paid off as he received the top mark at LDSS for the Waterloo Fermat math contest. Joel is recognized by Leamington's teachers as a reliable and conscientious student who takes initiative in all areas of his life. He co-organized the LDSS peer tutoring service and is qualified for SWASA in men's double as a member of the Lions badminton team, and was a multiple medalist at WEXA with Lions swim team. Joel is also a music student and took on the additional responsibility of a repertoire class playing clarinet. In the community, Joel is a busy volunteer with the town's junior badminton club, the Southwestern Ontario Gleaners, the Leamington Men in White Home, Skate Wheatley, and his public school. He is a lifeguard and instructor, teaching swimming lessons to students of all ages. Last year, Joel took the initiative to find himself a paid summer co-op at Brave Control Solutions, an engineering consultation company where he could get hands-on experience. Joel researched the company, successfully interviewed for the position, and made such an impression on them that he was offered a chance to return this summer as a paid employee. With an academic average of 99%, Joel has accepted an offer from the University of Waterloo Engineering's co-op program. Congratulations to Joel for being selected as Student Senate's April Student of the Month for the theme of initiative. Come on up, Joel.
Come up front. If you have family here, they'd like to come up and take pictures. Yeah, they're welcome to come up. Congratulations, Joel, on behalf of the trustees. And as conscientious as we know you are, you're not obligated to sit through the whole meeting. So at any point, feel free. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Under delegations, I forgot to mention that this delegate canceled earlier today and is going to be sending something, I think, through email to the trustees. So we can move on to the speakers list. There are 5 on a variety of topics. So I'll call them out in order that they signed up, and I'll give you the topic as well at the same time. So Joanna Conrad is coming to speak on the RISE program. Joanna, if you could use the mic there, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Great. Good evening. My name is Joanna Conrad. For those who don't know me, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. First and foremost, I'm a mom of 3 elementary-aged children, 1 with a disability and 2 without. I'm the executive director of an organization that works with at-risk kids and youth ages 6 to 26. I'm a part-time instructor at St. Clair College in the Criminal Justice Program. I'm vice chair of the Parent Council at my children's school. I sit on the Special Education Advisory Committee as a representative for Up About Down, and I sit on the Town of LaSalle's Accessibility Advisory Committee. I'm not sharing my various roles in an effort to apply for a job today. I share this with you because the various hats I wear are not coincidental. In 2015, when my daughter was born with Down syndrome, my husband and I believed that the present offered the best opportunities for individuals with disabilities, trusting in accessible systems to support our daughter's fulfilling life. As the days turned into weeks, I realized the systems in place were not quite as they appeared. I realized I had to immerse myself internally to advocate for her and others like her. Which is what brings me here this evening. I believe my diverse roles give me a unique standpoint to address the board's cost-cutting review, aiming to reduce the $8.9 million deficit, including cuts to the RISE program. I recognize the temporary continuation of RISE for the upcoming school year. However, this doesn't diminish the importance of my argument tonight. I advocate for the program's long-term sustainability, ensuring that it remains secure and it isn't subject to future budget cuts. I also want to make it clear that when I mention people with disabilities, I'm specifically referring to students with learning disabilities or intellectual disabilities. Unlike the Turner Consulting Group responsible for conducting the Student Data Census Survey, I think it's important to point out that intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities are distinct. I also want to acknowledge that neither Turner Consulting Group nor the external researchers for the RISE review appear neutral or unbiased, with one having written several books on how spec ed programs are problematic, and the other having a distinct focus on racial matters. This concerns me because their views do not appear to be in favor of the most vulnerable population in society. You see, what I have learned is that people tend to prioritize matters that directly affect their own lives. To my knowledge, neither anyone with decision-making power here or in the government has a learning disability or a child with one. I emphasize this because it's inconceivable that special education would even be considered for cost-saving measures if they did. You'd understand the exhaustion parents of children with disabilities feel from the battles we face every day, big and small. In a first world country where quality education is a fundamental right, fighting for appropriate learning support shouldn't be part of this battle. Rewinding to 2015, my husband and my illusion of accessible systems relied on things like the Education Act that states all exceptional children in Ontario have access to suitable special education programs and services at no cost to be established by school boards. How will this happen with 22 reduced positions in spec ed for the upcoming school year when already resources are low, 90 students are on a wait list for special education, there's staff shortages in every single school, greater demands on teachers, students slipping through the cracks, some not attending school because of a lack of staff, or sometimes IEPs not being implemented because there simply isn't enough staff on hand to support them. This is not only a concern for students who benefit directly from programs like RISE, all students will be impacted. They already are. The AO-DEA standards are applicable to any organizations with at least one employee, a category that encompasses public schools. Therefore, even in the absence of a spec ed standard, public schools are obligated to comply with the AO-DEA. For instance, newly constructed or renovated schools must ensure accessibility, and educational materials are required to be provided in formats and communication methods that are readily accessible to students who require them. This is already not happening now. How will it happen with more cuts? Currently, 3 out of 4 people with intellectual disabilities ages 18 to 64 are living in poverty in Canada. The last institution for the disabled closed in Ontario in 2009. There is a direct correlation to the abuse and lack of education provided to those residents that impacted their ability to be a contributing member of society. Whether it's students with or without a disability, if we don't invest in students in their early years, what can we expect will happen as they become older? As a mother who's made a promise to her daughter that I will give her all of the opportunities she deserves for a meaningful life, I will not stop, not here, not today. The political correctness of society and the facade of websites and mandates and even legislation promising things in theory are not true in practice, and something I will not sit quietly behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Thank you very much. Were there any questions for clarification? Trustee Leclerc?
Yeah, I think I'll jump on Trustee Burgess. Could you share a copy of that with us, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I do have a question, if you could return to the microphone. Thank you. So you had spoken to future success as children with special needs, special education needs, move forward through their lives. And you have some experience in criminal justice. Could you speak to what cuts in education into special education might have a later impact in the criminal justice field?
Yes, we see this out. So I work for Youth Diversion, which is a not-for-profit that works with at-risk young people. Historically, we've only worked with young people referred to us by the courts and the police, but as of recent, we work with kids as young as 6 to the age of 26. And what we are seeing more and more are young people coming through our doors because they have issues with school. They fall back, they slip through the cracks. When it comes to undiagnosed, especially learning disabilities, oftentimes what we're seeing is that once they start having issues at school, their desire to attend school, their motivation to go to school lessens. They start skipping school. Perhaps they start participating with kids who perhaps also don't have positive views of school, which only causes a detriment to not only their education, but also their view of what the world looks like and their motivation for success going forward. So when it comes to their opportunities in terms of success, those are diminished. But further to that, even the other piece is the GED program has been cut. As of May 1st, it's going to be gone. And the government has not provided any information in terms of an equivalent program. So we know that if we don't invest in children in their foundational years, such as their elementary years, then what can we expect from them when they get to secondary school? And again, their potential to stay in school, but to also graduate. And the kids that we're talking about that would be successful in the RISE program would be the ones that are benefiting from the additional supports to ensure that they are successful and they have the confidence and the motivation to do well at school so that we don't have to worry about them not following through with graduating and again being able to contribute to society thereafter. Removing the GED program not only disadvantages people present day, but also going forward, because again, when we talk about the fact that I went to school with almost no children who had a disability, a lot of those kids were still institutionalized and or just coming out of those institutions. So in today's day, when we talk about the kids that are in school, we've essentially done the same thing other than put an iPad in front of their face and some headphones on their face, on their ears and say, good job, hope you do well, and then expect them to be successful contributing members in society. And unfortunately, I hate to say it and to be the one to say it, but we also know that young people and or adults looking to make money in today's day and age, all you have to do is go to Marketplace and see what's going on when it comes to looking to criminal activity, illegal activity to make ends meet, because if they don't have a diploma or they haven't been supported in order to graduate from school and to be able to have the foundations to get a job, then what are we expecting for the Canadian population society to look like?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Robin Granum. Robin is here to speak on the trustee code of conduct. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to pray a peace over Michelle's family, in Jesus' name. Good evening, my name is Robin Gannam. I would like to acknowledge the return of trustee Linda Kin as well. I am grateful that you are here, Linda, and your constituents, parents, and children appreciate you. I also like to acknowledge Nancy Armstrong and Kathy Cook, and acknowledge that Kathy stated that she was not elected to please trustees, but that she was elected by the community. And may we all be reminded of that, who you represent. I've been studying the Greater Essex County Trustee Code of Conduct, and it states an open, honest, transparent communication. I'm going to refer to your mission statement, that is, what is the focus of academic excellence, with a focus on academic excellence, innovation and inclusivity, the Greater Essex County District School Board is dedicated to preparing its students for success in a rapidly evolving world of today and tomorrow. So according to the Trustee Code of Conduct, and that mission statement is wonderful, a safe, stimulating environment, caring and welcoming environment, which accommodates individual students' learning styles and needs, promotes and facilitates the learning process. That's wonderful. Skilled, caring, and motivated employees make a positive difference in the lives of our family. Students are essential to success of our future, which teachers are also under you. And let me refer to the Code of Ethics for the teachers. Conscientiously and faithfully perform the statutory duties and conduct themselves professionally at all times. Seek to enhance the public's perception of the college and profession of teaching. Then why does the school board expect and demand them to go against their code of ethics, against their spiritual beliefs of many teachers, especially Christians and Muslims, regarding the LGBTQ agenda? Referring to the open, honest, and transparent communication and build trust and commitment, I refer to your Facebook page as of October 2023, the Greater Essex County Facebook page, and LGBTQ plus history, people communities. Greater Essex County staff can access information on queer pedagogy, local history, and lessons plan, creating inclusive classrooms. Okay, I want to ask you, what about that is transparent for parents? Parents don't have access to these programs. Parents don't have access to these lesson plans. Parents have no idea what these lessons plans are that are on your website. That is not transparent. It is anything but transparent or open. Effective planning and fiscal responsibility decisions are necessary to direct our resources to maximize the learning process, and we are accountable for our decisions. Accountable for your decisions. I refer to the Canada website, canada.ca website, which says, based on self-reported data, 0.2% of Canadian youth aged 12 to 17 years identify as non-binary and 0.2% as transgender. Age 12 to 13 elementary is less than that, and under 12 is not even mentioned. So I ask you in your your spending budget, how are we addressing your spending budget when we are appealing to 0.1% of the population within our schools, and less than that for the children in elementary schools? You are accountable for your decisions. That's not appealing to all the students. Spending budget on all that stuff you're doing for the LGBTQ, that's not appealing. I'd like to refer to open and honest, transparent communication as well, not only on your Facebook page, but parents that want to speak and members of the community that decide to speak. One being Selena Hamilton, who was denied to speak at the school board meeting tonight. The reason being, she is not a parent. She is a community
You have
member
20
and a
seconds
taxpayer.
left to conclude.
What?
15 seconds.
And in closing, your mission statement and your code of conduct. If you truly believe in promoting all-inclusive classrooms, we, the parents, demand that you will embrace and include the 99% of parents and students. You would embrace and include this flag next to your LGBTQ community flag in classrooms and when you hang it up. That you would include this flag if you are truly all-inclusive, that you must include this flag to include all children, not just LGBTQ members.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have questions for clarification? Seeing none, thank you. The next speaker is Jay Palco speaking to, no, we're not debating that. Thank you for your presentation. Jay Palco is the third speaker, speaking to agenda item L5, which is a notice of motion from trustee Chin. And you have 5 minutes.
All right. Good evening to the chair, trustees, administration, and all in attendance. My name is Jeremy Pellico. I'm a father of 2 and active in our community, such as in advocacy, politics, church, including teaching Sunday school. I'm an engineer with over 20 years of experience and thoroughly versed in processes and procedures. One priority that ought to be crystal clear is that public officials and representatives, first and foremost, serve the people, their constituents, particularly those in their ridings and jurisdictions, and within the school board context and forum, especially the parents, children, youth, and young adults. I'll be speaking on agenda item L5, which reads, L5, notice of motion, trustee Chin. Recommendation. Due to the high level of unsatisfaction from the community and lack of democracy and transparency in the naming procedure, in order to protect the public confidence and avoid potential harm to students and community, I make a motion to examine the naming procedure of Erie Migration Academy and appraise the corresponding consequences to the board. I like this motion. Despite the deliberation and collaboration by the naming committee, to whatever extent and with whatever groups, Erie Migration Academy was clearly a huge miss. And Erie Migration District school naming is actually a repeat of the same failure. In the letter written by Trustee Burgess to MPP Liardi, there was extensive explanation regarding the local history and environment in the choosing of the initial name. The significance of the location of the school matters, of course. However, what was not mentioned, highlighted, or emphasized, as it ought to have been and needs to be, was a rightful focus on students, parents, and community and their input. I'll explain. School is a special place for a special time in the lives of those who have the privilege to attend. Rolled into that is the social life, much of which arises out of school activities and sports that generate school spirit to help bring fun to these amazing years of development. This is of great importance in choosing the name of a school, which appears to have been disregarded. Mistakes happen. People can accept that, forgive where necessary, and look ahead to resolving the matter. When a failure occurs, simply acknowledge it. Pivot based on the new information, evidence, facts, and data, and do the next right thing. Unfortunately, a culture of censorship and or cancellation seems to have infected this procedure, which is itself a reflection on the overall process for governance by this board. The school naming issue needs to be addressed with proper discourse, not only allowing but encouraging another round of discussion and debate, but there is a larger overarching issue that must be resolved. Trustee Burgess commented in an interview on this naming issue, indicating it would be difficult to revisit, quote, when it's adopted so enthusiastically by the board, but 3 voted nay and trustees walked out. I would not call that an overall enthusiastic vote. A following comment to justify not revisiting the naming was that it would have to be something really awful. Well, I think you can check that box twice. The specific procedure related to the naming of the new Kingsville school is a big issue and merits investigation. The bigger issue to me and many of us who have interacted with this board is the lack of care, attention, and focus given to the people you represent. A process is composed of procedures, but please keep in mind and understand that a process is for the people. It is not to be the process over the people. In other words, the input and objectives of parents and students are more important than following a procedure that may or may not produce a desired result. In this case, the procedure has failed, and more importantly, between this board and there is conflict between this board and their constituents. Unfortunately, this is a pattern of willfully ignoring and disrespecting, such as in bringing forward serious concerns that we have in the community regarding highly inappropriate sex ed, books, surveys, etc., materials and content that should never make it within school walls. We sincerely and eagerly request this board to change course in their governance approach and seek to ally with the community through due diligence and care, attention, and focus toward making schools that are safe, enriching, and fun experiences for students, their parents, and all those concerned. You can and need to do better, much better. And when things go wrong, pivot and do the next right thing in consultation and collaboration with all stakeholders, keeping parents and their children, the students, at the top of your list. We're willing to help. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for clarification? A question for clarification?
Thank you for your presentation. And based on your, observation, and we already passed a motion to put the naming policy and procedure to the naming committee. And do you think this method can solve the issue of this current school? Just putting back to the naming committee the policy. So how do you think it will, resolve the issue? It will resolve or not?
I mean,
Thank you.
As far as I go in terms of resolving issues, I've done a lot of troubleshooting in my years, a lot of problems. Voice of the customers needs to be at top of the list. If you're not actually addressing the voice of the customer, in this case, the parents and the students, you're going to fail as a board, and that has not happened. Now, it depends on who's on the board, who's leading the board, and how that's actually, those processes and procedures are being executed. It can be done well. I think there's 24 people on that committee, and there's involvement from students. I think there are 600 names offered, and then there's also been petitions written, which I think those petitions should be paid attention to by that committee. If they actually take that input from the parents, from the children, right? These are youth, these are young adults. They know what they want, and they understand what school spirit is, and they don't want to be embarrassed by the name of their school. But more importantly, as a committee, it's to actually have things on a list and then pull two names, make a new name, and then call that, and then decide that that's the name of the school. People are rightfully upset.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, yes, it can be done well, but any contract, anything that's written in writing, the committee, I'll be done in a sec. It's only as good as the people who are behind it, and they need to respect the will of the public. That is your due diligence, and it needs to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, our next speaker is Elena Meisel on the RISE program. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, trustees, and any superintendents that are here tonight. No parent wants to hear or think that their child might not get the support or education they need at school because of a budget problem. My name's Alana Meisel. I'm a lawyer. I teach at the law school. I have a master's in critical disability studies. But importantly, I'm the mother of a 7-year-old who has a learning disability. I am aware of the reality that the board is in the process of reviewing the RISE Reaching Individual Success and Excellence program at Legacy Oak Trail and other Greater Essex District County School Board schools. I'm here to tell you that it has been incredibly stressful while this review has been ongoing, not to have any certainty about what type of supports and accommodations our children are going to have, not only next year, but for the rest of their education. My child's 7 years old. He's in grade 2. I have no confidence that he's going to be accommodated beyond this June, and he requires accommodations. And the only thing I've been told is, well, we have a deficit, so we're reviewing those programs. I can't tell you how discouraging and disappointing that is. For those of you who don't know, the Reaching Individual Success and Excellence program is a partially integrated special education program within schools. The RISE classroom is designed to support students with designated exceptionalities. The focus is on language and math. And the program provides individualized programming, uniquely suited to each student's strengths and needs. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. My child is now in grade 2. Grade 1 was a significant struggle for him and our family because he didn't have the support he required. The struggle to provide him with the support and the pursuit to find the right accommodation has been a journey, in part because of the difficulty with securing educational assistance and other support staff in our local elementary schools. I attended the community consultation meeting for students with disabilities at John Campbell School. There were 7 of us in attendance, 4 parents, 3 members of the school board. What became clear is that the data presented in the survey was both confusing and lacking in many ways. The survey was a one-size-fits-all approach to collecting information about the needs of students with disabilities. It did not distinguish between the different types of disabilities and the different types of accommodations required to properly and equitably accommodate any person or child with a disability. Anyone who has had any real experience with disability or accommodation knows that meaningful and equal accommodation is never a one-size-fits-all approach. What became clear at this consultation, having reviewed the census data, is that there is a significant disparity between the results of the surveys and the needs of our children with disabilities. It appears in listening to some of the speakers tonight that perhaps the RISE program will be funded next year. Again, there's no certainty for any of the parents in that program. And we need that certainty because it's a daily stress not knowing what is going to happen. I am strongly encouraging the board to take an outlook that gives parents and children who have many years left in elementary school to have some reason to believe our children will have the consistent special education support that they need, long-term sustainability, to adopt the words of Ms. Conrad, so that hopefully we are not left crying at community census meetings and board meetings every single year after this. And of course, I wished I didn't have to become so emotional during this presentation, but this is an issue that is so close to my heart and so important to the kids that it impacts. So thank you for hearing me tonight.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Meisel. Do we have questions for clarification? Trustee Burgess.
And for clarification, if I could, you said the survey, you criticized the survey because it didn't distinguish between exceptionalities.
Yes.
So it was just a bit too general and vague?
Yes, there were some questions that asked about, for example, a child with a disability. Certain questions did not distinguish. Oh, sorry, I'm so loud normally. Certain questions didn't distinguish between the different types of disabilities. So, for example, there was no distinction between a person who required accommodation for a physical disability versus an intellectual or developmental disability. And of course, to properly accommodate any individual or child with a disability, the type of disability is incredibly important to achieving the appropriate and sufficient accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, on the speakers list, we have Angie McClellan Mitchell speaking on the Bell River track. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. My name is Angie McClellan Mitchell. I am a parent, resident, and business owner in the town of Lakeshore. We have been in communication with and received a quote from Playtex Enterprises, which is a track repairing company. for repairing and resurfacing the Bell River District High School alumni track. The proposed work includes removing the old surface, addressing any defects like cracks or leveling issues, applying BSS 100 red structural spray, and painting new lines. During discussions with Matt, the president of Playtech, I've shared several photos to illustrate the track's current condition. Matt assured me that the observed cracking is typical and will be properly addressed during the repair process, and is in the scope of the quote. Regarding long-term maintenance, which the Greater Essex County District School Board has brought up on numerous occasions, the board has insisted on needing a 10-year maintenance plan, and the cost would be in the millions of dollars to maintain Bell River District High School's alumni track. Matt explained that the first 5 years are covered under warranty, and he doesn't anticipate significant repairs within the following 5 years. The track's new lifespan after resurfacing is estimated at 10 to 15 years, with another application of the red structural spray recommended at the end of this period, at an estimated cost of $150,000 to $200,000. This would give the alumni track an initial lifespan of 20 to 30 years, which is 10 to 20 years over the requested 10-year maintenance plan by the board. With having 10 to 15 years after repairing of the track, this gives the board time to budget and also the community to fundraise until the need of the next respraying. Playtech Enterprises is an already approved Kinetic GPO contractor with our school board. In the email that I sent to all trustees and board members, I outlined the expenses to underscore the marginal financial differences between entirely removing the track and planting grass to repairing it with a durable synthetic surface, ensuring a lifespan of 10 to 15 years before any maintenance is required. In 2022, the Greater Essex County School Board had a quote from an architectural and engineering firm. Remediation number 1 was what they voted on, which was remove and replace with grass, at a cost of $384,797. And then on top of that, an outdoor beautification payment made to the school of $100,000. Total amount budgeted for removal was $484,797. Additional unknown costs not budgeted for is maintenance of the additional grass planted and the ongoing maintenance of outdoor beautification project. I received a quote from Playtech on March 21st. Remove old surface, repair base, spray new surface, repaint lines, $515,000. That is a difference of $30,203. Since this money has already been allocated and there is a minimal difference in overall cost and the cost of repairing the track, not in the millions of dollars, as previously stated, this money should be put towards the track. We would also like to bring to your attention the great community and the town of Lakeshore's Mayor Tracy Bailey's interest in our alumni track. There are currently 3,178 signatures on our online petition with many words of encouragement. We kindly request your consideration in thoroughly evaluating all options for the restoration of our alumni facilities. Furthermore, we seek assurance that no demolition will commence until a comprehensive assessment of these options have been conducted. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the trustees for clarification? Thank you. And of course, we have received the email as well.
All right.
So, yeah. Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, we're under new business. L1, actually, there's a typo there. It's the policy and regulation with regard to disposal of surplus properties. And this required, because of legislation, there needed to be updates to our regulations. So, we have someone to move it. Trustee Buckler, supported by someone. Trustee McKinley. Any questions on this? Trustee Burgess?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we did discuss this at Policy Committee, but I have a question. It's the same question I asked there, and I just want to understand it completely, a clarification, because it's something that is a new section. It's on page 1 of 4 of the regulation, page 17 of our package, and it's the number 2, mandatory disposition. And it's a new thing, and it's cut and paste. My understanding is it's straight out of the ministry approved, wordsmithing. But it says here, blah, 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 blah. Current public accommodation needs or pupil accommodation needs over the next 10 years, the minister shall, and it continues. And my question, through you, Madam Chair, if I could, and I asked it of the superintendent of business, but whenever we have accommodation reports or any kind of thing, we ask about how do we predict at the 10-year mark what our enrollment, what our needs are, what are going to be the, the state of affairs as far as anything needing repair, et cetera. And my understanding for all the years I've known is that 10 years it gets pretty sketchy. So it's a change. It comes from the ministry, and I've been assured that, well, this is the way it is, and, we have to kind of go on. But how will we govern? My question is, how would we govern something and know with any kind of confidence, I guess, of something that we won't need for 10 years? How will we predict that now?
Is that rhetorical, or are you looking for an answer?
No, we're about
Okay.
to pass a regulation, and we're going to be responsible for governing it. So give me some clue on how we would be able to govern something when we don't honestly know the migration, immigration, growth, needs, what, for 10 years.
Superintendent Armstrong?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I can certainly try to answer that. You're right, the reference to mandatory disposition and the reference to 10 years comes directly from the Minister of Education. The intent is to, obviously, school boards are holding on to property generally that are empty or have not been used, so it is a government initiative to have school boards sell these properties. For our purposes, we, through Superintendent Allwender and through the work with Watson and Associates, we work with them to develop enrollment projections, to look at trends in terms of immigration and population patterns. I completely agree with you. It changes very frequently. The only time that we are required as a board to report to the ministry when we feel a property falls within what we would call a mandatory disposition, we would only report that if we brought it forward to trustees and asked or made the recommendation that trustees consider the property to be surplus to the needs of the board, in which case the only properties we typically ever bring are specifically schools that are closing because they're being replaced elsewhere with a new school. But we would bring that forward to trustees, but at the same time, could patterns change? Yes, and if it does, then we would go forward to the ministry with a capital priority business case.
Supplementary?
So on that, and I've heard now twice at least the explanation, it still leaves me really uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable enough not to pass this regulation, but I think to flag it as a provincial concern in that I don't know how, without any kind of extra support, we would be able to do anything except petition the government of the day in order to go against their initiative and our accepted regulation. Because we have seen those changes. My mind goes to Giles Campus. That was up for disposition, we needed it. Then it was up for disposition, we needed it. So that would be my only thing. I'm supportive.
I understand that, and we don't have a choice anyway.
No, but could we flag it?
I think
for
the
OPSA?
key in the response from Superintendent Armstrong is that if we were under a condition of mandatory disposition and then subsequently discovered a need, then you go back to square one with a capital request to purchase a new land, purchase new facility, whatever. So it's not like it binds us with no recourse. It might not be the best recourse. That's my point. But, okay, anything else on this motion? No. So basically, it's a reflection of the new legislation. So all those in support? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. L2 is the school-generated funds. You have that in your package. We need to put it on the floor. Trustee Buckler, Trustee McKinley. Are there any questions on this one? Trustee Leclerc.
L3. Oh, sorry. I have something on L3.
Well, you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait. Did you? No. Yeah, okay. Student Trustee Pine on L2.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just had a question on this policy, specifically item 16. I was just wondering what we did before this and kind of what the goal to correct this kind of lack in the policy was, just kind of the rationale behind it and how we did it prior to this new policy.
Do you have a page and a reference, or are you talking about the whole thing?
Sure, 26, page 3 of what we were given for that policy. 26, it's item 16.
Okay, the Superintendent Armstrong, thank you.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. To my knowledge, there was never anything that was done differently. It's just it was never articulated before in the policy, and we know in the regulation, and we know now, particularly in this year, with so many schools that are closing and consolidating, we wanted to give assurances to the public and to the school community about what would happen with those funds if they carried over.
And if memory serves, I think we have seen that through the audit committee. Yes, so it's something that we are familiar with, and it just was not articulated here, but in other places of the board it was.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you, Superintendent Armstrong.
Okay, all in support? Any opposed? That's carried, thank you. Item L3, notice of motion from Trustee Buckler. I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself. Moved by Trustee Buckler, support by Trustee Burgess. Did you want to speak to it, Trustee Buckler?
Just in light of the deficit, I think that we as trustees should actually be cognizant of what and how we do our business. And there's been over the 10, 12 years I've sat around this table, a lot of just miscommunication around what the policy says and what it means and what it covers. So I think we need to be a lot clearer in our policy and regulations so that anybody looking at it at any time knows exactly how we do business, that we remain as transparent as possible, and that we watch our nickels and dimes most of all.
You, Trustee Leclerc?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. I just wanted to, I thank Trustee Buckler for the clarification because I was asking myself, what is the need for doing this? I do appreciate your comments. I will support it. Having said that, I will comment that it won't have any effect on me because I've yet to put an expense in since I've been a trustee. I've seriously never submitted an expense for reimbursement since I've been a trustee, so it won't have an effect on me. So I will support the motion.
Anyone else on the motion? Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I support it. And what I would ask is if the mover has any ideas that she would like to pass on to the policy committee, if the policy committee is going to review, and will we be making just a call now if it's passed?
I have every intention of either attending the policy meetings or being there via teleconference, whatever I can manage. I don't mean to keep any secrets or any. I truly want to be there.
And I'll just add too, from my perspective, that the past year and a half or whatever it is, I've been having to approve expense claims, and I've seen things that where it's not been exactly as clear as it could be on what is allowable and not, and there are a lot of variations. So I will be making some input as well onto this. Okay. Trustee Chin, question?
No, I have comments on that. Okay. Oh, thank
Question
you.
on the motion?
Oh,
Or
yes.
Comment on
yes.
the motion.
Yes. I respect Trustee Leclerc. He said he didn't claim any expenses, right? Yeah, I know in our board there is an atmosphere about not sending expenses. I admit that I send my expense, as far as I know, because I think it should be fair for the trustees, and I put all my effort and energy on working for the students, for the parents. I spend a lot of time, and I do think that the salary that we get cannot match on that at all. And our salary, it is open that our salary is 1,000 a month, and and to be honest, I put too much energy and time on that, and I did my best to serve the parents and the students. So I support your motion, but I have to make it clear that I'm not wasting any penny, any money of the board, and I do my best to contribute. And I'm not going to fully volunteer for my work. So that's my comments. Thank you. And I have a question. How much expense that we have based on the budget? How much we spent for the total, budget?
We just had a report on that, Trustee Chin.
Yeah, I think if I was correct, we just spent 1/5 of the total budget. So I don't understand why we spent time to question ourselves how to spend, Thank you.
Trustee Leclerc first, he was mentioned, so he has the right to respond.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, Trustee Chin, it was not a reflection on anybody's, anybody putting in an expense in or not putting an expense. It was a statement about myself.
Oh, yes, that's I appreciate, and I also have my comments on that. Yes, I am not taking it personally. Yeah, and also my budget, including the past years and expense, I didn't report. So I didn't take this, but I do think it should be fair for the trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Buckler?
I'm sorry if anybody thought I was passing judgment. I absolutely never was. I was trying right from the get-go just to make this really clear and to make it as trimmed down as it can be, because we have to be fiscally responsible as well. Yes, fair, absolutely, but and no judgment. So if you have anything you want to share at the policy, please bring it if this passes. But I truly did not mean anything by this.
Student Trustee Pine?
Not on that, just in general. I really like this motion. I think it's great specifically because I just started, so I had to kind of learn all of it when I first got here. So I think that it definitely could be more clean cut, kind of more of a black and white, what is not, and would be really good. And I think it sends a great message that we're going back and kind of reviewing our expenses because we are in a deficit and we want to kind of keep every nickel, every dime, every penny that we can in our account so that we can put it towards meaningful things. So I really like this motion and I'll support it.
Thank you. Any other questions on the motion? Nope. All those in support? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to L4, notice of motion from Trustee Sipcar. Trustee Sipcar, do you wish to move it?
Yes, through you, Chair, I'll move this.
Okay. Just to warn you, Trustee Sipcar, we might have some difficulty hearing you, but I understand you're moving it. We need a seconder. Trustee Buckler and Trustee Sipcar, do you wish to speak?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
No. Are you using a cell phone on speaker?
I was using headphones. Can you hear me now if I take those off?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, I'll do that then. Yes, I'll keep my comments brief. I think the motion is pretty self-explanatory. This motion was in response to a report that came to the board last September, and just really enabling and empowering our administration to pursue all avenues to work with community partners. As we heard from a presenter tonight, or the speaker tonight, that there could be other alternatives and other options. And so this motion is just designed, again, to direct our administration to pursue those. So I'll take any questions or any discussion on the motion.
Do we have questions on the motion? Trustee Leclerc, then Trustee McKinley.
So not a question, comment. I'm torn because we've been down the road. We've had a report. The report was submitted, and we know the costs. I do have some experience related to tracks. And my experience is that despite promises that tracks will last 10 years, they don't. And they're very expensive, and we're unfunded. But I love the idea of having tracks. I'm not anti-track at all. But what I am very cognizant of is the fact that our administration already did a report. We have budget coming up. There's a lot of work going into the budget. So my preference would be that if we're going to do this, that we defer it till post-budget, because that would give community partners an opportunity to do some of the work. We heard the presentation tonight. I would love to see some of that documentation in terms of what the guarantee is, because my experience is tracks last about 5 years. It's the experience that I've had with tracks that were built by this board in this community. So my preference would be to see this deferred until after we get through budget, because quite frankly, we're not going to have any money for tracks. Having said that, I also think we should defer doing any of the work until after we get an opportunity to do what we need to do as a board. That's my thoughts. Thanks.
Chair, can I speak to that or be added to the speakers list?
Sorry.
I said my preference was I did make a motion to defer.
No. Sorry, Trustee Sipkar, I couldn't hear you.
I just asked if I could speak to that or be added to the speakers list.
So you wanted to respond to that?
Yes.
Okay, it's your motion. I'll let you respond.
Sure. Just to clarify a few things for Trustee Leclerc, when I used the language viable options for tracks, it wasn't around specifically the the tracks with the rubberized surfaces. It was more in line with options such as asphalt, etc., that, for example, one of the speakers brought forward. And the intention with the motion is to work with community partners on the financial side to not have that burden be on the school board, realizing that we do have significant budgetary pressures. And so the idea with I specifically talked to Director Houston about this, was that there have been a few community groups who have been coming forward, or municipal partners, and this would allow them and give them that direction to pursue those options without, in consideration to the financial, ramifications towards the board. And so, I mean, maybe administration wants to speak to that, but it wouldn't be to just have any option for the rubberized tracks. It's really about what is the best financial pathway forward. Are there community partners who are willing to support even just repaving to be able to be used as walking tracks and just resurfacing. I appreciate the concern. That is also my concern in terms of the budget, but this was really designed to support that work of administration so that we aren't faced with higher costs. So I just wanted to address your two concerns.
Trustee McKinley, then Trustee Buckler, then Trustee Burgess.
Yeah, I guess one of my questions for Trustee Sipkar would be, when you mention community partners, do you have some in mind that you've heard of, or are we just, because so far this year I haven't had any drop a call to me saying, hey, we'd love to help with Massey's track. So if there's some community partners out there, I would love to hear from them, because I'm torn on this, because I want the asphalt track to stay in Massey's backyard, because I think having a giant oval mud pit would be so much worse. But I also acknowledge that we have a major budget deficit to deal with, and so that does conflict me an awful lot as to what to do around this one. So,
Sure. I'll just quickly speak to that through you, Madam Chair. Well, for example, we heard one tonight who had discussed the community in Bell River and specifically, a potential municipal partner. All of these are options, and I don't want to hamstring our administration to say one or the other. I think that I've been in communication with others via email who have interest as well, and so I think it's just prudent on our part to allow those conversations and direct our administration to speak to those community partners on it. So I would encourage anyone listening, if they wanted to, reach out to all trustees, but I know that I've had a couple of conversations with for different tracks for different reasons, and I know some of the other trustees have heard from potential community partners as well. So there has been some outpouring of support for these tracks.
Supplementary, Trustee McKinley?
yeah, to the community partnerships, and I saw a little while ago something posted by, I believe it was Mayor Tracy Bailey, regarding the tracks and some sort of partnerships working with the school board. To admin, I'm just wondering, have we heard from them at all regarding setting up such a meeting to discuss?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. We are attempting to arrange for a meeting, but to date, nothing has been guaranteed, a time or date for any meeting through administration.
Trustee Buckler?
I noted on Trustee Sipkar's motion that she put it for the 24-25 budget. So I'm assuming she's looking a year out and giving us time to have our meetings and communications. Is that this budget that will be 24-25? Well, I was thinking 23-24. But no, I totally agree with Trustee Leclerc that I'd appreciate the year and give them the opportunity to have the meetings they need to have, that we don't move anything or rip up anything or spend any money that we don't have to spend yet. And I'm hoping that works.
Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So my question would be to the mover and possibly speakers since, but so I want to understand what has been discussed. So there's enough doubt with me thinking that I know we have to do something. We either have to make the surfaces safe with a track or without a track. We repair to a certain standard or to a different standard. This motion, as I see it, is to work before June to come up with some sort of options, possibly including ones that we've heard of from delegations and or things that have been sent to us directly as options, et cetera. I heard some clarification, not just the rubberized thing, but, possibly, repairing asphalt, whatever. So my question is it still to, by June's budget, get some estimates on at least some options or some understanding of some options of, or if we don't do that, the plan right now is to destruction of whatever and to put grass in. So my question is about the liability of unkept or unusable or not certifiable or whatever tracks with Osby.
I will remind trustees that was all in the report of September 2023. But if Superintendent Armstrong wants to answer that again, I'm sorry that you're being asked this because that was all presented to us with regard to the liability and all of it. So,
My question is, we
Superintendent.
didn't see all those options that other people have talked about as far as, not as high a standard as what we looked at, but the liability thing, has anything changed? That was what, September, October?
well, I guess that would be the question. Has anything changed with regard to our liability?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, no, the liability still exists.
Trustee Chin?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And I fully support this motion. And my reason is that I think the priority of our school board is the student achievements and students' interest. I think that we all know that the track is very important for the student achievement and even for mental health, and also for the disabled kids, that they make full use of the track to recover. And this is also based on the survey. We have the budget survey. Even in the questionnaire, we didn't put the track in a clear question item in the questionnaire. We see that a lot of many respondents, they mentioned the track should be stay, and we should do our best to keep it. And also, based on the speaker today, and also we got the information, we do have the options to keep it, and either from the corporation, from the city, or from the donation, or from the community. They have less how to say that, less cost to cost less money to repair the track. So I think we do have a lot of option, and before we make full investigation of that, if we simply make decision to remove the track and place on the grass, and it will cost us a lot more in the future if we want to have a track back. So we should make prudent decision, and we need to fully investigate and discuss that. So I support it. And also, it's regarding the reputation of our board, comparing with the other school board, like the Catholic school board. They have two beautiful tracks, but in our board, we want to discuss it. So it will harm our reputation of the board and public confidence. They didn't get more money than us, so how do we manage our budget? So this is that, yeah. And so I think based on those all this, we need to investigate, and I think that the senior administration, they didn't really put enough.
That's inappropriate.
Okay. I said I want more.
Could you
Yeah.
apologize for that, Trustee Chin? You have no
Yeah.
right to say that.
Because
I didn't hear an apology. I will ask you to stop speaking.
Can I wrap it up?
No.
No.
You have to apologize for what you just
Okay, I apologize, but I really want more information, transparency from the administration to give us all the information.
Point of order.
Okay, thank you.
So point of order, Madam Chair. You requested the member apologize. The apology has to be directed to the persons and/or persons that are receiving the apology. Otherwise, it does not meet the merits of an apology.
So I want to apologize if I speak anything.
You have to direct it to the people that you said it to.
Well, I don't know who I direct to. To administration. Administration. Okay, and I apologize, and thank you for your cooperation. Thank you.
Trustee Pine, student
Chair.
trustee.
Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to be added to the speakers list as well, too. Thank you.
Sure.
Through you, Madam Chair, I really liked what I heard from Trustee Sipcar, specifically on the asphalt idea as opposed to kind of the rubberized track. The elementary school I was at, Essex Public, we got the Aviva Fund and got our asphalt track, which was roughly 400 meters. We were able to do our track and field days on that as long as I was there. It was put in mid to late 2000s, around 2010, I want to say. And that has held up the 14 years I've been a part of the asphalt, as I've been a part of this school board as a student. It's still working and doing great, and it wasn't that expensive. The Aviva Fund was only about $100,000.
Do you have a question? Sorry, do you have a question?
I was commenting on the motion. Oh, it's a question?
Okay, I'm going to take a recess for 5 minutes. Administration has been maligned, and I'm not going to continue right now, and we're going to take a 5-minute recess. And I have Trustee Sipcar and Trustee Cook to speak. Trustee Sipcar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I wanted to make it clear to trustees, based on some of the comments around the intention of the motion and how it relates to the initial report. My intention with this was that in that report we saw that we were going to be spending money to effectively remove the tracks as they stood. We saw that in that report. And at the time, administration made that decision with all of their best information, and I was not trying to in any way discredit that report or say that there was anything wrong with it. There has been new information, I feel like, that has been brought to light by certain community partners, and I'd like to remind trustees who are potentially on the fence that we are actually spending money either way. So the idea with this motion is to pursue viable options that are within the envelopes of funding that we've seemingly already committed to the removal of the tracks. And I would like to maybe direct a question towards administration to ask, is there anything in this motion that derails any of the existing work? And I say that because it is my understanding that a lot of the work hasn't started yet because it's still during the school year. And so I'm just curious if administration would be able to comment on this motion in terms of, the existing plans and if this derails any of that, if they are able to work with community partners. Thanks.
Superintendent Armstrong?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. There's a couple questions, I guess, with respect to the notice of motion that administration would have, and then I can explain at least some of the work that we've done or not done so far with respect to the tracks. The work was always intended to be tendered in the spring, and we have not done that process because a lot of conversation has happened recently about that report that was brought forward in September. Part of the intentionality for the timing of any tender is because the work couldn't be done anyway until school was closed over the summertime. I can share that the board has had conversations with a municipality. I'd rather not disclose it at this time for some significant joint use agreement that is very beneficial to that municipality and to the board. And so we're working on that, but I can also tell you we've been having conversations and working on that for close to 9 months. So in terms of just the notice of motion itself, it's going to be probably virtually impossible to explore those viable options for the 24-25 budget because we're already in mid-April and we'd be bringing up a budget forward by mid-June. Administration has also had conversations with post-secondary institution as well with respect to another joint use agreement for use of schools and use of their facilities. We've reached out to our coterminous board about the ability to use tracks for our schools that do not have tracks, because there are other schools. We have Walkerville, Westview Freedom Academy, North Star, and the new Erie Migration District School that don't have track facilities at all either. So, I mean, it's more than just the 4 schools that are named in this report. And we do have a joint use agreement as well with the City of Windsor for uses of our schools, but uses of a number of city amenities, which include Malden Park and the Ford Test Track, which also have running surfaces. So there is a lot of work that we are doing. We're not ignoring or discounting the needs that are there, but we're also very cognizant of the liability issues, and we are very cognizant of the, like we've talked about, the $443 million of deferred maintenance. So there's a lot of needs, and it's just trying to find the right fit for the limited money that we have. So in terms of the motion itself, it would be really hard to do this for 24-25's budget. And I guess my question then would also be, is it strictly just those schools that are named in the report? Because there are other schools that don't have any of those facilities at all either.
Through you, Madam Chair, as a supplemental.
Yes.
If the for the 2024-2025 budget was removed from the motion by amendment, if my colleagues were to consent to that, do you, in your opinion, Superintendent Armstrong, think that would be okay for if we remove the timeline piece to it?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, certainly. And we're hopeful that there are community partners, including school communities, that are willing to partner with the board in fundraising, and we would certainly welcome their input, and they should be, that we'd welcome them to reach out to the board. Thank you.
So Trustee Sipcar, did you want to put an amendment on the floor?
Yes, I'd like to move the amendment to strike for the 2024-2025 budget and just remove any sort of timeline to allow administration that freedom to bring things forward as they feel when they're ready.
Okay, so to pursue viable options for tracks from the 2023 report, period?
For trustees to consider, period.
For trustees to consider, period. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Trustee Cook? Anyone on the amendment? All those in support of the amendment? That's carried.
Support.
And I'm going to call, Trustee Cook, did you have something? No, okay. And then I'm going to call the vote on the amended motion. All those in support? That's carried. Thank you very much. Item L5 is a notice of motion from Trustee Chin. Do you want to move it, Trustee Chin?
Oh, yes, Madam Chair.
And a seconder? Trustee Armstrong. And now that the motion has been put on the floor, I'm going to make my ruling that the motion is out of order. I did provide the trustees with my rationale, but I'll just summarize it and remind trustees that we do have rules of procedure that we have to follow. And with regard to notices of motion, we have specific guidelines in our governing bylaws in Appendix 2P. And I find that there isn't anything here that complies with those guidelines. In particular, the opinions that are stated at the beginning of the motion are totally inappropriate. We don't allow notices of motion to state opinions, which are points of debate. So that's totally inappropriate. The motion to examine the naming procedure is vague, doesn't assign the examination to any particular body. It's already been examined through administration and reported to trustees that the procedure, or our policy and procedures were followed. That's already been confirmed. And then the whole naming policy, school naming, renaming policy, has been moved to the policy committee. Trustee Chin is a member of that committee and can, through the committee work, do her own review. So I think that based on the vagueness and the redundancy, that part is out of order. And part 3 about apprising the corresponding consequences to the board, that it's borderline with regard to an opinion, that there are corresponding consequences. There is no criteria for which to judge any type of consequences. There's no way to know what counts as a consequence, what doesn't count as a consequence. Therefore, again, because our Appendix 2 of our Notices of Motion Guidelines says, whenever possible, the motion shall be worded in affirmative terms, not negative terms, and should express fully and unambiguously the intent of the mover. And I think that this notice of motion fails to meet the requirements of our own governing bylaws. Therefore, I am ruling this motion out of order.
Can I challenge the decision?
Yes. So Trustee Chin would like to challenge the chair. Is there a seconder? Trustee Armstrong? I'll ask Trustee Nelson to take this.
Okay. Seeing that there is a challenge and a seconder, the chair will speak to it first.
So I'll speak to it. I have given you my rationale. I sent it to you in advance to consider. We do have governing bylaws. I don't make a ruling based on my opinion. I don't make my ruling based on like fear of a motion. I don't base my ruling on favor to any particular side of the argument. I base it 100% on what our governing bylaws are. We're required by law to follow our policies and procedures, and I have applied them to this notice of motion and found it to be out of order. If there are questions of my ruling, I will try my best to answer them.
Okay. Trustee Chin?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And the reason that I want to challenge the decision of the chair is that the first is the conflict of interest of the chair. And the whole naming procedure was flawed, and the chair played a...
Sorry, Trustee Chin, do you have a question for the chair?
Yeah, my question is that a motion, if there is anything, inappropriate in the motion, we can always amend it. So the reason that you ruled it out, you said the first part is debatable. I can, cancel the first part. And also you said there is no clear, ways to do that. I can make a amendment to have an ad hoc committee to consist of, all the partnerships. So I think we can always amend the notice of motion, and I also think is clear that this motion has less satisfaction from the public. So I think it's a good way to examine that. And when you said we refer it back to the policy committee, and you mentioned I was in the committee, I know when we refer it to the policy committee, it needs a lot of cycle, a lot of time to kind of fix the policy and the procedure. But currently, the name of the particular school, and they are going to open in September, so we do have time limitation, and we cannot wait for the policy to be corrected, and then we come back to examine the naming of the particular school, and it's not fair for the students and for the
Sorry,
community.
Trustee Chin, do you have a question, please?
Yeah, my question is that do you have conflict of interest So do you have the right to?
Point of order.
Okay.
My point of order is that a trustee owns their conflict of interest if there is one. No conflict of interest was declared, and it's inappropriate for a sitting trustee to outwardly question the declaration or lack thereof regarding any pecuniary interests.
Thank you, Trustee Leclerc.
Okay, I withdraw that. Can I have my question is that can I make a amendment to my motion to make it clearer and follow the rules?
Oh, there is no amending this one.
Decision to,
Mm-hmm.
a challenge to the chair is the only thing we're discussing, and I'd like to move right after that, that we call the question.
Okay, do I have a seconder to call the question?
I'll support calling the question.
Trustee Leclerc. Okay, so the question is, shall the ruling of the chair? Oh, my apologies. All in support of calling the question? Okay, thank you. So shall the ruling of the chair be sustained, is the question. All in support? Okay, you're supporting the chair, so that passes. Thank you.
So, Trustee Chin, I'll just help you out that you have the ability to make another notice of motion if you choose, if you want to make something different, but this is ruled out of order. So we're moving forward.
So you mean
reports.
for the next meeting, right? Notice of motion? Or you want me to make now?
No,
Okay,
no, when we get to that part on the agenda.
okay, thank you.
So reports to be received, the first one is the report of the Director of Education.
So, good evening. Longer days, warmer temperatures, and we're viewing the school year as a matter of weeks now, not just, or if not days. But right to the end, we're going to maintain our focus on student success and well-being. We're still eagerly awaiting the announcement of the Grants for Student Needs so that we can begin the process of preparing and finalizing our budget for the 2024-2025 school year that we'll be bringing forward to the trustees. And we're very hopeful that we can do that by June, but the longer we wait for the announcement, the longer that delays us from getting to the work. So, more than 500 students, staff, and community members came together in March to celebrate and access Black joy and Black excellence in our board and within the region. There was honest and passionate discussion throughout the symposium, and I'm grateful to our Black Student Advisory Committee and the staff who helped organize and carry out the successful event. And I met a wonderful little friend named Martha that day, and I'll never forget her. She was such a little beauty who was participating in one of the dancers at the event. Community consultation on the data gathered in our student census has begun, and there are more sessions on April the 18th as well as April the 27th. And you'll see up there where those dates are, and that's also posted on our website for anybody who's interested within the specific groups to attend those sessions. April the 8th was a momentous day with a total solar eclipse. It helped to motivate teaching and learning about astronomy and the natural phenomena. At Westgate Public School, our grade 2 students used paint and chalk pastels to create depictions of an eclipse that are completely safe to look directly at without wearing glasses. Students from LDSS had their art on display at the 26th annual Juriad Show at the Leamington Art Center. Ashley Reimer's painting of a horse took third place overall, and Isabel Williams' painting of Rideau Canal earned a second place. Aren't those spectacular pieces of artwork? It is a great time of the year for the arts. Here's the cast and crew of Sandwich Secondary's production of Matilda Jr. that finished a successful 2-week run yesterday. And we don't have pictures yet, but Superintendent Awunder and myself today attended Finding Nemo Junior at Sandwich West Public, and it was fantastic. I asked Superintendent Awunder at the beginning, do they find Nemo? And he said, I don't know. But by the end, he found out that they do find Nemo. A couple of weeks ago, members of the Drama Club at Tecumseh Vista Academy competed in the annual NTS Drama Festival district competition with their production of What Light. They received 3 outstanding production awards and move on to the regional event in Hamilton later this month, and we look forward to reporting to you what they can accomplish there. Students at Gore Hill Public School took part in a drum circle and spoken word experience with Tasia Travis from Arts Can Teach. Leamington District Secondary School senior David Kim recently accepted the prestigious Helmuth Scholarship from the Huron University College at Western University. College officials showed up unannounced to make the presentation. David gets full tuition and fees for 4 years. He's one of only 10 students in all of Canada to receive this prestigious award, and he will begin his post-secondary study of business next September in London. We wish him much success. April is Earth Month, and young environmentalists throughout the board are doing their part for the planet. These are some members of the team at Forest Glade Public School who help year-round to organize the school's recycling collection. Students from Westview Freedom Academy attended the Workforce Windsor Essex Industry Tour Day last month. They had a great opportunity to explore jobs that are in demand in the region and training required to get those jobs. The tour included a visit to Carpenter's Local 494, as well as some of your colleagues, because it's been a busy place for tours. The trustees who attended the Ontario Public School Boards Association regional meeting on April 6th were hosted at our Local 494, and they got a look at the classroom setup and learned about the program delivered to our students in the skilled trades. We look forward to seeing the skills of the Bell River Bolts heads in action. They're in Houston this week in the first Robotics Championship. They're one of hundreds of teams from around the world at the event. The Bolt heads are in the Dali division, and if you want to track their progress, you can just visit the First Robotics website. And thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Job well done. Thank you. Trustee Sipcar, do we have a report from OPSPA?
Yes, can you hear me okay, or is it?
Not that well.
Okay, let me switch again. Through you, Madam Chair, Director Houston stole the thunder a little bit. I was going to speak about how our board hosted our Western regional meeting. So I believe 5 or 6 boards from the western part of Ontario visited the Local 494 Training Center. It was we received an excellent presentation from Trent DeRoche and Logan Kane, who run the Enhanced Construction Program. For trustees who have not been to that facility, it was amazing to see the work that they're doing with our students. And one of the things that was noted was that our program is the first like it in the entire country, and other boards have been reaching out, particularly across the province, as the Ministry of Education has been putting an emphasis on skilled trades and pathways to apprenticeships for students in high school. And so it was really encouraging to see firsthand that our board is leading the way. And I'd like to give a big kudos and shout out to our senior administration for that presentation, but also just for that program in particular. It is really a model for the rest of the province, and a lot of trustees from the other boards came away with a lot of exciting, ideas and invigoration for their own board. And I, in particular, it actually started in 2020, and it's amazing to see it thriving through COVID. The only other thing I will say is that at that meeting, we received board updates, but also discussed OPSPA's multi-year strategic priorities, and we just discussed the current environment in terms of budget in the Ministry of Education. I can share the minutes with anyone who is interested, and I'll take any questions or comments from other trustees now.
I just want to make a quick comment. The part about leading the province, that's the board that I know and love. And we do that often and we do it well. And so again, congratulations to our administration and our staff for leading the way once again. Trustee Burgess, you had something?
It might come up in announcements, I'm not sure, but Trustee Sipcar did give a heads up prior, but Labor Symposium's coming up, and we are going to have some folks attend that, and we look forward to that. And also, this year, just as Greater Essex hosted our Western Region, Ontario Public School Board Association is hosting the Canadian School Board Association thing, and it is getting booked up. Rooms are getting booked up, so I'm sure she mentioned it, as I said before, but if you are interested in going to the Ontario Public School Board Association Annual General Meeting, which is also tagged along with the Canadian School Board Association Annual Congress and the Indigenous Trustees gathering as well. That's beginning of July in Toronto.
Any other questions on the OPSPA report? No. Well, thank you very much, Trustee Sipcar. Next report is the budget consultation and survey results. Who wants to walk us through? Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview. The board implemented a budget survey, which we've done for a few years, and we did that again for the 24-25 budget. We're pleased that the number of respondents increased by 12%, which was great. We've collated all of the responses so that all trustees have the opportunity to review them. I didn't filter or change anything other than redact when there was foul language or something that was really highly inappropriate. There was a couple like that. But beyond that, I've shared it the way it was presented to us so that we're being transparent with the feedback that we have received, and so that trustees can consider that as we move forward with the 24-25 budget. There's some items that we did this year that we are super pleased about. We did budget consultations specifically with the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee, with SEAC as well, the Special Education Advisory Committee. We also did a budget consultation meeting with the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Committee, and we actually had focus groups with some families and community members from our Indigenous community, which was great to do. We also have a YouTube video that we put up that explained again how school board funding works. And beyond that, we've also included all the comments that have come through consultation, either through our public budget meetings or again through these focus groups and these other areas where we consulted specifically with committees. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Buckler, and then Trustee Burgess.
I probably should have asked this before, but I did notice in the survey a lot about the Bell River track, which I'm sorry is my passion, right? I'm just wondering, with the motion we passed tonight, does that halt the demolition of the tracks that are slated?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, we're not going to do any work. We're going to repurpose that money for other capital priorities in the board that we've held back for those purposes until a final decision is made. Thank you.
Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is a comment that I would like to share in private session, and I'm just giving you a heads up and to the chair of private session. There's some things in this report that, while I appreciate some things have been redacted and that there's a thought for transparency, et cetera, I find some of the things that have been included go beyond the what's the word I want to say? It's not a like the caveat at the beginning that states, I'm sorry, comments were only amended, et cetera. Certain views contained may cause harm to some individuals. And I honestly think that's absolutely true, and to the point where I'm saddened that staff and students and others have to read this, because I think it's very hurtful, some of the comments, and that beyond foul language, there's some foul thoughts here. So I'd like to discuss that in camera, so I'm putting it on that once we recess back in camera, I'd like to discuss that, please. Thank you.
Would be appropriate. Thank you. Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, just for clarification, I sit on SEAC and we did the survey together, but there seemed to only be like 3 questions. But then when I was reading this report, there seemed to be numerous questions, and I'm like, until later when I thought, it seems like there was 2 different surveys, or is that just my...
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. You're correct. We did 2 different surveys. When we went to the public survey, we asked a few specific questions, and we were intentional when we had drop-down options, because there are some areas where we have to spend funding on. That's what the GSN requires that we do. So it didn't seem appropriate to ask people to prioritize something that we're obligated to spend money on. And we also left options within the public survey so that people could add comments. When we got to the committee surveys, because each committee represents specific interests, it felt like the drop-down questions probably we would already know generally where those committees were going to land. So we left it very simple by simply saying, what are your priorities and where do you think the board can save money? And that was really what we went back to the committees specifically about.
Chin, you have a question?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think as a trustee, we are obligated to ask questions no matter if it's support the board's decision or not. And we need to represent the whole board, communities and students to question, and I believe it will improve the quality of our work. So that's make me to ask question, and I did hear from different peoples. They said the survey kind of lead a direction intentionally, and for certain critical aspects is not listed in the item to ask the opinion. But I do appreciate the report. I can see that every respondents, their opinion has been put in the report. So I really appreciate it. Has so many pages. And except for the one that mentioned the track, and another is that I see many people question why we put so much money on equity, inclusive kind of training or activities, and is there a way to balance that? I'm not going to say that we shouldn't do that. Is there any way to save some money to put on the track or some other priorities to make student achievements better? So I wonder if those, because that's a lot of people, respondents, question this. So I'm wondering if we can consider their opinions and evaluate it and make adjustment to our budget. Thank you.
I will say that equity, diversity, and inclusion is a board priority, and that will always be taken into consideration until trustees or administration recommend that we not.
Can I have
It is a board
supplemental?
priority.
Supplemental? Yeah.
You have a supplementary question?
Yes.
About the budget survey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I believe that equity, inclusive, they are very important. And I'm a minority from minority, so I believe that's very important. What I'm saying is that considering the balance of the budget, since we are in the in debt so much, so should we really adjust the investment and put. I believe based on the provincial government, the first priority is student achievement. So should we adjust that part of the money to the student achievement part? Thank you.
Director would like to comment on that.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So I just want to make it clear that administration brings forward the recommendations for the budget to trustees. Trustees actually approve the budget, which is yourself. So we only bring forward the recommendations of where money should be spent. It is the trustees' decision to approve that budget or not. So I just want to clarify that. The second would be, I'd refer you to the mission of our board. I'd recommend that you go back and read the mission for our board and about inclusive for all students to feel safe at school. And then finally, I think that it really needs to be clear that one person could respond to the survey 500 times. There's no way of knowing that there's actually 500 different respondents. So in any survey, I think that's really important to take into consideration. One person could have put in there, for example, about tracks several times.
Superintendent
Supplemental.
Armstrong.
Can I respond to this?
Superintendent Armstrong is going to respond.
Thank you, and I just want to add on to the director's comments through you, Madam Chair. We have a school board budget of over $500 million. The amount of money that we spend on equity is probably like $900,000. Relative to $500 million, it's not a significant amount of money, and I think that I would argue that diversity, equity, and inclusion is directly related to student achievement, because if students can't feel safe in school and can't feel accepted and appreciated, then they're not going to be successful. I think there's a direct linkage to that. Thank you.
100% Superintendent Armstrong, and thank you for saying that. Trustee Chin, do you have a supplementary question related to your first question?
Yes, I appreciate the explanation, and I fully understand. And my question is that since we already have the survey, and if the answer of the survey are not in favor of us, we question their integrity of the respondent. So what's the point of us to do the survey research? And
Point of order, ma'am. A point of order for clarification. I didn't hear anyone question the integrity of any respondent. Please, please, ma'am, Madam Chair, please. That's totally out of order.
No.
Yes.
The director said that one people can answer several times. That's incredible, integrity issue, right? Respondent.
No, that's not what the director said. The director said that the way that that the survey works, you can't tell if it's one person who answered 100 times or 10 people who answered 10 times. She didn't say anything about the integrity. So I ask you again to apologize for your remarks.
That's my understanding. I'm not going to apologize, because if one person answers 10 times.
No, I'm going to ask you to stop. And I'm moving on. This is a report. I will also say that the budget consultation process in the survey was by board motion. It's not something that administration just decided that they wanted to do. It's been done for years, and it was initiated through the trustees. So we're moving on to item M4, which is the chair's report, and I actually have a report for tonight on a few items. So the first one is with regard to the director's performance appraisal. Our policy and regulation was due for review on our cyclical chart. But now the Ministry of Education, in accordance with the Better Schools and Student Outcomes Act, is moving forward with regulatory and policy reforms, one of which governs the performance appraisal of the Director of Education. So what this means is that the province is setting the standards to be followed. I'll read you directly from the minister's office that the provisions in the Act providing authority to standardize the Director of Education performance appraisal process, that was proclaimed at the end of December. To support these provisions, a regulation has now been put in place that outlines mandatory elements and a standard process to ensure clear, consistent, and transparent Director of Education performance appraisals for all school boards. The regulation outlines a mandatory set of assessment criteria that all boards must use to complete annual performance appraisals, with flexibility for the inclusion of additional locally focused appraisal criteria determined by the board in collaboration with the director. Further guidance is coming from the ministry, and there was something in there about timelines in terms of when your director started and when they move into this process, so that'll all get explained to us, but it's now going to be a province-wide system for the appraisal process. So I wanted to make you aware of that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that recently, this is a little bit unusual, but recently, the 2024 federal budget included a national school food program. This is an investment of, it's about $1 billion over the next 5 years for providing meals to 400,000 more kids every year beyond those served by existing school food programs. The quote from our Prime Minister was to set kids up for success. Children deserve to have the best start in life, but nearly 1 in 4 children in Canada do not get enough to eat. At our school board, this is not just a problem for young, little elementary kids, but it's a concern for all students of all ages. Tonight, I would like to ask trustees for consensus, I said this is unusual, to send thanks to the federal government for this initiative, but I would also like to send to the provincial government a request to step up their efforts because it's their responsibility, and we need a stable, meaningful school food program for all students. So, do we have consensus? Yes? Have any questions? Trustee Burgess?
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. We'll be copying all of our local,
Oh, yes.
federal, and provincial.
Yes, on this one.
And with a direct request to,
On
and,
this.
yeah. And could we copy again OPSPA on that as well? Because that will
Sure.
be something that's been going to CSBA and OPSPA, and we're just glad we kind of hit a little pay dirt.
Sure. Okay. My next item is that coming up the week of May 6th to 11th is Health and Safety Week in the province. And the board, we know, is strongly committed to the protection and well-being of our employees and our students. We value the safety of all work sites, either as a place to work or a place to learn. As an employer, the GEC-DSB supports a wide range of policies and programs to ensure a safe and healthy workplace all year long, not just during 1 week. But this particular week, Health and Safety Week, May 6th to 11th, allows for opportunities to increase awareness particularly for our staff, but also for the public, about what our board does. And our health and safety officer, Tim Lozon, along with his colleagues, are busy preparing an informative symposium focusing on staff wellness, mental health resilience, climate action, and environmental factors impacting the workplace. And that's just part of it. This symposium will be taking place on May 1st, starting late afternoon into the evening at Tecumseh Vista. And it includes interactive activities and other resources, and it's all coming together very well. And I think the robust program that's being offered to our staff, and I'm going to use Tim's words, some amazing stuff. That's a direct quote. So I'd like tonight to say thank you to Tim, who always has health and safety at top of mind, as well as the team of organizers and participants for this particular health, wellness, and safety symposium for the benefit of our staff. And I just made up my last bit of my report. This is a little bit unusual, but I am telling you that I will no longer accept notices of motion with regard to the school, Erie Migration District School. It's done. The school has been named. We need to move on. If you want to make a notice of motion regarding something to do with the process, I would say it's properly to be referred to the policy committee. There was a reason why that motion was passed. The policy committee has already opened up a process for that. So I'm telling you now, it's time to move on. The school has been named. The transition team is busy working on the next steps, the mascots, the colors, the whatever else that they have to do. And we need to let them peacefully move forward. And the trustees, through our code of conduct and through legislation, through the Education Act, are required to uphold the decision of the board. It was a majority decision to name that school, and we need to uphold our obligation. So, there you have it. That's it for my report. Moving on to trustee question period. Do we have any questions at this point for this meeting? Trustee Burgess?
I actually have a question of your report, and it was a point for information, and I didn't want to interrupt you. And it was about the new information about the director's performance appraisal, et cetera, and whatever. Just to let everyone know, if they didn't catch it in an OPSPR report or whatever, that was cyclically discussed, and Greater Essex did have a voice, and that did go through policy, et cetera. And so when it comes back, that you should see some of our thoughts captured in that. We'll see. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you for adding that. Other questions? Trustee?
I have a question regarding your report just now. So it won't. I will have another question in the question period. Is that okay? Yes, yes. And just now you mentioned that the naming is done, and I remember you told me that I can reward my motion and make motion in this meeting.
You had asked about making amendments during my ruling of it being out of order, and I said no, but if you have a new motion about something, that would come under notices of motion.
So, but you said I cannot make
a
a motion on that, right?
Sorry, maybe I didn't explain it clearly.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
So can I ask a question period?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And just now, senior administration mentioned that the equity, inclusiveness, and this is I didn't remember the money, and that part of money, does it include the PA day and PD day, and all the teachers spend their time and their energy to have training on this topic instead of improving their teaching quality. So the data, the money that you said, does it include that part? And all the teachers spend one day in the PD day, or most of the day to be trained in this activity. Does it include that? Consider that part?
Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. So the reference to the money that was spent on equity would include that. The PD day is a learning opportunity for teachers, and there was minimal costs associated with those topics you just mentioned.
Supplemental. So that means you didn't really add that part of salary money of the teachers to learn that in that money, right? In that amount of money. No. You didn't, right?
Thank you through Madam Chair. We wouldn't track that as a cost related to equity because those teachers throughout that day are learning all kinds of different things, whether it's how to teach a new math subject, whether it's learning about health and safety, whether it's learning about the science of reading, whether it's learning about equity. We would never break a teacher's salary up to that level of detail.
Supplemental?
No, you've already had your supplemental. Sorry. No? You've had your question? Sorry. Okay. Are there any other trustee questions? Trustee Burgess and Trustee Armstrong.
Thanks, Madam Chair. If I could, through you. I have asked this question previously, and I got an answer, but I've heard different kind of rumors within the community, et cetera. Normally, our practice is when we have a school consolidation or a brand new school being built, that we equip it as best we can with as much new equipment as we possibly can. Obviously, if we're moving things that are, from a shop or something that's unusual, we would move, equipment and certainly resources, library things, etc. But particularly furniture, classroom supplies, that kind of thing. I've heard that at the new school, at Erie Migration District School, that there wouldn't be only new items, that we're going to cobble together some old things. And I want to know if the practice has changed, because the last I heard was no, we thought it was within our budget, et cetera, that we'd be able to accomplish it like every other school consolidation.
I thought what we were told would be that some equipment would be carried over into that school. But if Superintendent Allender, do you want to elaborate on that?
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Chair. There will be some equipment. Sorry, I can't really see here. There will be some equipment that's coming from Kingsville Public Jack Minor and Kingsville High School. Certain tech pieces are going to be going over that are in good shape. Anything that is not in good shape, though, does not make it over. And they do have a significant amount of new furniture and equipment and all of that kind of thing as well. So it's not that it hasn't been past practice, because when we opened James L. Dunn, we brought whatever was good from the old Giles School and put it at James L. Dunn and then top it off with brand new stuff. And we did the same thing with Legacy Oak and North Star.
Great. Thank you. Trustee Armstrong?
Yes, I understand you want to move on, but I just have a question. You have said no more discussion on the name of the school. But what if the same oversight with the vulgar acronym that happened with EMA is realized with the new acronym?
The school has been named.
Correct. That hasn't answered my question.
Nope. That's the answer to your question. The school has been named.
Even though there's a vulgar acronym.
The school has been named. Yes, Student Trustee Pine, your question?
Through you, Madam Chair, just a question to administration. I just heard from some parents and students in the Kingsville area about Gogaball. I know that was raised a little bit. If we could just hear back on what, if not, you're welcome to send it after what was found on that, just why it's not allowed so that we can let them know. Thank you.
Superintendent Roberts, can you answer that?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So it was determined, I believe about a year ago, and it was mentioned to our administration at that time that future Gagaba pits would no longer be built in our schools, and we are revisiting the safety of our current sites that have Gaga ball pits. Currently, I believe there are 3 schools that have the pits.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to notices of motion. Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. At the next regular board meeting, I'll move something like this. I'm going to say that I kind of cobbled it together, and I'm not exact on the words, but I do have something here. It's a recommendation that the GEC DSB set aside the practice for restricting extracurricular and community use for the first year at newly opened schools like Erie Migration District School and or its former feeder schools to better meet the needs to mitigate the removal of 3 or 4 school facilities use.
Look at that and we'll consider it. Any others? Any announcements? Trustee Leclerc?
So it's been mentioned a couple times so far tonight, but I do routinely announce regarding robotics. So I do want to say congratulations to Bell River for accomplishing going to Worlds. Shout out to Lee Awad, who's proven to be a champion wherever he goes. Sandwich Secondary misses him. I would also like to say, best of luck to the coterminous board school, St. Thomas of Villanova, who will be attending as well. Sorry, I can't remember their name. But while they're there in Houston, they may be from a coterminous board, but they're representing our region. So best of luck to both teams. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that, in case people missed it, the regionals took place on Easter weekend, and we did have 4 schools in the competition. So that was great. Great result. Thank you for mentioning that. Any other announcements? No. We've reached the end of our approved agenda. I am going to adjourn the public meeting, but we are reconvening in private session. That's correct? I can do that? Yes.
Yes, I'm telling my staff they don't have.
Oh, yes, staff. You're done. The evening's done. You're not required. Thank you very much. So trustees, please back into private session. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
No.